What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Fight Scene. On this channel, we talk about things that are happening in the world of MMA and combat sports. My name's Drew, and today I want to talk about the fight that's happening between Alexander Gustafsson versus Volkan Oezdemir. It's happening at UFC 227, which is an awesome card on August 4th. It's a big pay-per-view, and I'm super excited for it. I just want to get this video out somewhat quickly. I know my videos are a lot more long and drawn out than I'd like them to be. A couple of reasons why I want to get it out quickly. I've been filming a bunch of videos today because my house is finally quiet, and that's pretty rare. I got two young kids, and one of my youngest, or my oldest son, he's 2 years old. He's having a nap right now, and I actually have the baby monitor kind of sitting there because he's going to wake up any minute. So if you can hear some like rustling in the back, it's because we play music for him, which comes through the baby monitor. And if he starts crying, I'm going to have to turn off this video. So, well, it is what it is, but that's the life I live. So you're going to have to put up with it. Sorry if you can hear some rustling in the background. Yeah, that's my life. That's the video, and we'll go from there. So I want to talk about the fight that's happening between Alexander Gustafsson and Volkan Oezdemir. This one's actually, maybe it's a short video, probably not, because I talked way too much, and none of my videos are as short as I want them to be. But the reason why I say that is because this fight, who knows who's going to win? You do not know who's going to win this fight, because Volkan Oezdemir has spent basically no time in the octagon. That's given us very good information about what he's going to do in a fight against somebody like Alexander Gustafsson. You basically have Volkan stopping people within the first 30 seconds of, like, look at what he did against Jimmy Manuwa. He walks in there, literally tosses him to the ground and finishes him. I mean, Volkan Oezdemir has the stopping power of a heavyweight, and he's looked amazing in his fights, except for one against Daniel Cormier, where the fight kind of went as expected, very similar to the Anthony Johnson fights, where Daniel Cormier gets you down and finishes the fight. And once Daniel gets you down, it's all over. I mean, look, Daniel Cormier is one of the greatest of all time. Maybe not the greatest of all time. Not necessarily on the top of my pound-for-pound list either. I'm not sure yet. But it's hard for us to then take Volkan's performances in the octagon, which is basically just murking people immediately, and then a not so great performance against somebody like Daniel Cormier, and then go, well, what would he have for somebody like Gustafsson? Whereas with Alexander Gustafsson, we've seen a lot of fights from him, and what we've seen is super impressive. Look what he did to Daniel Cormier, double champ, one of the greatest of all time. People are calling Daniel Cormier the greatest of all time right now. I don't know that I agree, but I can understand the argument. They're saying he's pound for pound number one. At least the UFC says he's pound for pound number one, because he's won a belt in two divisions, and the only person he's ever lost to is John Jones, who he looked really good against in the second fight until he got knocked out. But before that, he was winning. I know that almost sounds silly to say, but there's not a lot of people that win rounds against John Jones, and Daniel Cormier is one of those, has won multiple rounds against John Jones. The other person being in Alexander Gustafsson. So I got on a big tangent there, but Alexander Gustafsson has looked really good. We've seen a lot from him. We've seen him look really good against Daniel Cormier. We saw him look just phenomenal against Glover Teixeira. You got to rewatch that fight. Maybe I'll rewatch it again on camera, because Glover versus Alexander Gustafsson is one of my favorite fights of all time. You have Alexander Gustafsson saying, I'm not sure if I'm going to fight anymore. You know what? I don't know that I have the fire anymore, and I kind of just want to retire. I didn't beat Jones. I didn't beat DC. I don't want to do it anymore. So you have him with this, like, I'm not sure that I'm fully in it. And it's like, well, okay, I'm going to come back. And then you're not sure what you're going to see out of Alexander, because let's be honest, he can be a little bit hit or miss. Right? Look at the Rumble Johnson fight. Look at, he did lose to DC. He did lose to John. So, excuse me, you're not sure exactly what are you going to get out of Alexander. And then he just looks like a brand new fighter. And that guy that fought Glover Teixeira, maybe he beats Daniel Cormier. That guy that fought with that confidence, those uppercuts, those combinations, using that range like that, definitely, I'd love to see him against Daniel Cormier again. John Jones has a lot of range too, so I'm not sure that he looks as good against John Jones. But man, Alexander Gustafsson is like, top two light heavyweight. You got John, who's out of competition. You got DC, Who knows if he comes back to 205? And then you got Alexander Gustafsson. No question about it. Those are the top 3 fighters at light heavyweight. And then this fight is going to tell us where Volkan Oezdemir sits in that mix. Is he number 3? Does he replace Alexander Gustafsson? Or is he number 4 and Alex beats him? It's hard to know. It is very hard for us to know what's going to happen in this fight simply because Volkan hasn't given us enough information of what it looks like when he's in trouble. What does he look like in exchanges other than just dropping people? So based on that information, you would go, well, from what we've seen from Volkan, he walks in there, drops Alexander in the first round and pounds him out. And that could absolutely happen. You know, we've sort of saw that in the Anthony Johnson fight with Gustafsson. So it's not like it can't happen. I just think it's pretty unlikely. I think the Alexander Gustafsson that fought Glover just looked so good that I expect him to use range appropriately and maintain a good distance. The question is, can he withstand the flurry of punches that will come from Volkan Oezdemir? Volkan obviously has power. For Alexander Gustafsson to really be successful in this fight, he needs to avoid dirty boxing with Volkan at all costs. He should avoid clinching with Volkan. He should avoid getting close in against the cage against Volkan. He should avoid going for takedowns and who knows what happens in exchanges against Volkan. I mean, he just needs to basically stay away from him and do what he did against Glover, which is just use crispy combos, use kicks to keep him at range, use that jab to keep him at range, throw uppercuts when you've sort of thrown him off his timing. Do all of those things. Do not get within that close range with Volkan because he's shown that the kind of power that he has, he doesn't need like big wind-up time. Like almost with Anthony Johnson, he needs to land a big hook or a big cross at range. Volkan has shown like just in that clinch range, short, like what Daniel Cormier did to Stipe Miocic, right? Who would have thought that short range punch would carry enough power to drop somebody like that? And Volkan has shown that he can put his body weight behind a short-range punch like that, and it's enough to stop somebody. So, yeah, I'm really interested in this fight. For me, if I'm making a prediction, I think that... I mean, I thought I knew, but now that I have to say it and make it official, I think that based on what I've seen, I have to pick Alexander Gustafsson because I have more information on him that I can make a judgment on. Even though I do have a lot of information on Volkan, which is just stopping people and knocking them out, I don't think that he can do that at the highest level of MMA. That's a hard one. Now that I've said it out loud, I almost feel less confident about it. I just don't see Volkan knocking out Alexander Gustafsson. I just don't see that happening. And if he doesn't knock him out in the first or second round, then the information that I have available to me is that Volkan, I don't know what like combos look like. I don't know what his range management's like. I don't know what his takedown defense is like. But I do know that information for Alexander Gustafsson. And what I've seen from Alexander is incredibly impressive. Like, look what he did against John Jones. Like steroids aside, I haven't formed an opinion about where John Jones sits in the greatest pound for pound yet because of steroids. Like, what does steroids do to that? I haven't actually made up my mind. Regardless, that's a John Jones that's on cocaine, steroids, Turinabol, estrogen, Viagra, or Cialis, or whatever. John is on everything. And Alexander, let's say, right? John's on everything, and Alexander looked phenomenal against him. And John Jones, to me, it kind of is the greatest ever. Like, what we've seen out of John in the octagon is so impressive that I think he's the best to ever do it. And look what Alexander Gustafsson did to John Jones in his absolute prime. That's a scary fighter. And so, you know, I think that fighter has what it takes to beat Volkan Oezdemir. Where I'm pausing here is I don't necessarily know how. Probably by decision. That's kind of my default. I don't necessarily see him. He didn't stop Glover. It's a 3-round fight, right? It's not a 5-round fight. So I would imagine that Alexander Gustafsson takes this one by decision. Unanimous decision. If it goes to 3 rounds, then it's pretty clearly Gustafsson's fight. What I don't see happening is if Volkan and him having sort of this back and forth war where it's really close. I think Volkan either wins really early or he loses pretty obviously. So there's that. And then who knows what happens with Gustafsson, right? Like, what do you do with him if he wins this fight? DC has said that he's not really interested in anybody but Brock and John. He kind of alluded to maybe a rematch with Stipe, maybe against Alexander Gustafsson. He said, Daniel Cormier said in the post-fight press conference for UFC 226 that Alexander would really have to show him something that fight's going to sell, because he didn't really make any money in that fight. So he would really have to see something from Alexander that makes him want to fight him again. So then what do you do with him, right? An interim belt? I don't want to see that. John Jones, right? Come back. Does John Jones get an immediate title shot at 205 after testing positive twice? I don't think so. Maybe you put him against Gustafsson. Who else is there really at 205 that would be interesting? Daniel Cormier, Gustafsson. Maybe Anthony Johnson, although he's bodybuilding and on all kinds of steroids. He probably can't even make 205 right now. So that'll be a conundrum that we'll talk about after the fight's over. But in an era that doesn't have, this is almost stupid to say out loud, but in an era where you don't have DC and John Jones, which is the best rivalry of all time, the two greatest fighters of all time, in an era where those two don't exist, Alexander Gustafsson's the champion. So to me, it's pretty clear, actually, now that I unpack it and say it out loud, that he wins this fight. That's my opinion. Alexander Gustafsson by unanimous decision, and then we go from there and see what happens in the 205 division. I'm not sure. Maybe Paulo Costa will move up. I think he's great. Maybe who else will move up from middleweight? I mean, there's some good fighters there potentially, but Luke Rockhold versus Gustafsson. That's the fight. That's the fight I want to see. Luke Rockhold versus Alexander Gustafsson. Anyway, thanks for letting me think out loud on camera. I know sometimes I can be a little bit rambly, but that's why I do this, right? Who else am I supposed to talk to? My wife can only put up with so much of me rambling about MMA. So you've clicked on this video. You get to hear me ramble about MMA. And if you've made it this far, thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for watching these videos and leaving your positive comments. Let me know who you think wins this fight between these two in the comment section below. I'm messing up all sorts of words. It's obviously time for me to stop filming. I've been doing that for a little while now. Anyway, thank you so much. I really appreciate you watching these videos. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. So thanks again. Fight the good fight, and I'll see you in the next one. Hey, thank you so much for making it to the end of this video and listening to me ramble about MMA. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you watching and taking time out of your day to view this content. If you want to see some more videos from me, you can look over here on the right and click on those. Also, if you want to know when I upload new videos, you can subscribe to this channel, or better yet, click the notification bell. And you can also check out my Patreon account. Nah, I'm just messing with you. For real though, give me money.